Well, guys, I don't really enjoy doing this power wire this way, but I cut the pigtails off that were already formed on the old cord, and I'm just going to connect them together to the end of this. Since all the colors match anyway, I'll do some splicing, and I'll get creative with some heat shrink tubing, and hopefully by the time I'm done, you won't too much be able to tell I've spliced. You probably will, but I'm going to do my best, and we're going to see. And we still got like at least 6 foot of cord here, so I think we'll be okay. Okay, I got the main cord prepped, and you see I did stagger the way I stripped those so that they won't line up right on top of each other. That'll give me a little freedom with a little extra solder for the lumps there. That way all the lumps are on top of each other. But hopefully I can get that done right. And then I've got my ends, well, I've got to strip the ends there, but I cut the green and the white back a little farther because the black is going to have to extend over to that new fuse that it's going to go through before it goes through the line filter now. So I gave it a couple extra inches there. Got my last bit of soldering done, and that piece of heat shrinks far enough away it won't shrink up. I've already soldered these two, and I pulled their heat shrink down and just taped them temporarily in case the heat from the other work I was doing started shrinking it up. They're in their final resting place though. I just didn't want to take a hairdryer to any of this and get these wires hotter than they needed to be before I soldered them. But I did my best to do twists and incorporate solder, kind of tin each one. It's hard to tin each one and then twist. Sometimes I will tin one and leave it straight and leave the other one bare. But sometimes you do that and you made a mistake and the copper won't take the solder too good, and you'll be sitting there getting the wires way too hot and melting the insulation. So, to be honest, I think they actually would stay together pretty good if I didn't twist them at all. If I just tinned both of them and lined them up perfectly and then put some more solder on them, usually they've been pre-tinned, and the solder, if you do above and below, like elevate it, like I've got this, and put your soldering tip below and above, all the way around if you can, just to kind of remelt the solder, it will join and make a pretty good union. But you got to be careful because you'll leave little sharp bits of wire or solder sticking off, and you can nip those with pair of angle cutters or something, because you don't want it to be sharp where when you pull the heat sink tubing over it, it's gonna abrase through it after some time. So try to get it just as best you can. So I think that's pretty strong now, and yeah, I got it all the way around there pretty good. Don't know how good the video's showing. I'm not gonna cry about that. And I'm gonna pull my heat shrink tubing down, and then I've got a very large piece. I put it on the wire way down here. I got a really large piece. That's some stuff I've had from Radio Shack for a long time. And I'm going to pull it down over the whole works to cover up all this I did. And all you'll see sticking out the end will be the 3 spade lug connectors. And hopefully it'll look a little more factory than, what you would think. Just showing you I've got those 3 heat shrunk. And they've been soldered already and everything, and I staggered my joints when I soldered, and I staggered the heat shrink too, so it's evenly covering the left and the right side of each individual conductor, so that the solder job is right in the center. You can tell by the little bit of bulge you see, but the bulges on each one starts right where the other one left off. So hopefully once I put this all together like this, might have to bend that wire a little bit. Sometimes the solder will wick up into the strands of the wire, and it will actually solidify inside if it doesn't melt the insulation. And you have to actually flex it a little bit with your fingers before you pull the next piece of heat shrink up. So I'm going to do that, and then I'll pull this big piece up. Sorry I'm sitting here in my socks, guys, but I think you guys do the same. I'm going to pull it up, cover that real good, and then once we heat shrink it, I think there'll be enough left to plug in where we need to plug in, and it will look pretty professional. It won't look like a hack job. We got it done. I had to put one more piece of heat shrink tubing on because what I put on from Radio Shack, now it was a really long piece. It took a while to start shrinking, and since that stuff is, I don't know how long I've had that stuff. I know I've had it more than 10. I might have had it as much as 20 years. That's this stuff right here. it didn't seem to shrink as much or as quickly as it should have. Now, each one of these strands has its own piece of heat shrink tubing to insulate it on the inside. I just wanted to make it look a little more factory by putting one piece over all of it, so it kind of looks like it come off the cord like that. But it didn't tighten up as much as I wanted, so I left it on there for insulation and just to be over the oh, excuse me, about dropped the hair dryer. I left it on there for insulation and just to kind of protect the other connections on those three conductors. And if you see, I actually put another piece on here that's a little smaller, it's a little shorter, because nobody really makes them as long as those that I bought from Radio Shack. That was like, shoot, probably 10 inches long. And what I did is I just overlapped the back of that piece and shrunk this down to tighten up to keep it from moving or coming off. You see how that shrunk up really good. This is some good stuff, and it shrinks pretty quickly. I like it. And it's this kit right here. This was bought, I think it was Advance Auto. Let's see, Autocraft. I'm trying to remember if Autocraft is Advance Auto or AutoZone. I want to say AutoZone, but I can't remember. Let's see, does it say anything on here? Autocraft, made in China. You can look it up. But anyway, it's either Advance Auto or AutoZone. I'm thinking AutoZone because that's usually where I get stuff like this. Well, not necessarily where I get stuff like this, but I get stuff for working on cars usually at AutoZone over Advance Auto. And it's just because the local one seems to be better here. Nothing about the nationwide chain or anything. But there's the part number if you want to try to look for the kit. Let's see. There you go. But this kit is just, you know, it's not got many colors. Well, it has no colors. Actually, it's just black. But every one of those I've tried, they shrink up really quick. So you do have to be a little careful. If you're not good with doing stuff like this without getting it hot, it's going to shrink up on you too fast. This kit right here, I bought one day because it looked like a great deal. And I know I paid less than like $8 for it. I can't remember how much. But it was at Harbor Freight. And I don't really like this stuff. It does have some colors, but it just doesn't shrink very fast. And it doesn't seem to have as high a percentage of shrinkage as the stuff from the car parts store. But I do think they were close in price. Probably the car parts store was higher because, you know, Harbor Freight's got really good prices. This stuff works, and I do like that it has like green for when you're doing grounds and stuff. But I wish they had more sizes. They got a lot of larger sizes. I wish they had more in the size of the green. And it just doesn't seem to shrink as fast or as much. Lower percentage of shrinkage. So anyways, just give me my 2 cents on that. And if you have some really old Radio Shack stuff like that right there, don't depend on it shrinking too much. But you do see the links used to be really good on this stuff in the old days. I guess you can probably still get that at some places. I just hadn't seen it recently. But anyway, we get this put in the cabinet and see how it works out. We got an actual ground plug now. All right. Nice long cord. This thing, good gracious, it sticks off of there at least 5 or 6 feet. And that's not counting the couple feet that are in the cabinet. But I did it like this. And, you know, Nintendo cabs, I think they come with these built-in ties. I like those things. Used it to relieve some stress there. Did the same over here with a couple for the main power wires that go to the PCB board from the switching power supply. And I think there's one back there I haven't used yet. It's just sticking up. I might use it for something. We don't have power to the marquee light right now, and I know that. I replaced the marquee light with an LED, and this doesn't quite make it down to the power connection there or there, wherever I want to tie in. So we're going to have to come back, and I want to try to match this cord most likely. I've got some extra white cord and just put some spade load connectors on it and probably come down here and pull power right where it enters the switching power supply most likely, because that's basically, well, well, no, it's not exactly where the isolation transformer is getting its power. It's actually pulling it right after the line filter there. So yeah, we can put a couple more spade load connectors on those two bottom screws there for the AC and the neutral and the line. So we'll get our power from that for the marquee. Just got to get some more spade load connectors. But everything else is hooked up. Worked out like I wanted it to. And I mean, seriously, like if you just open the cabinet and look, would you even really think about there being black heat shrink tubing on the end of that wire? It kind of just looks like there's nothing there. And then you just got your ground, your neutral, and your hot that comes out. But see how I made the hot a little longer? Because see, it has to come over here and pick up this fuse. And it barely did it, but it did it. I could rearrange that fuse if I need to. But this board's kind of small to put all the stuff on there that's on there. But well, worked out pretty good. Everything's connected. I am not going to power this thing on until I get back up. Because if anything's wrong, I'm going to start trying to troubleshoot. And I won't get any sleep at all. But it turned out pretty good, I think. And this darn thing's strong. You can like move this whole freaking cabinet with this ISO. Not with a switcher. These switchers are always shoddily made. Got a screw in the front and the back, and they're all wobbly. But it's not going to fall if you turn the cabinet on its side or anything like that. And especially not this ISO. This thing, God, I don't know how many pounds that thing weighs, but it's heavy. But we got everything connected, and I'm going to do some checks and stuff with my multimeter before I send any power to the monitor. Make sure that the ISO is sending what I think it's sending, and check all my grounds when I get back up and stuff like that. I've checked most of the grounds and they all seem to be working okay. Did connect that ground to the monitor right there. I don't think you've seen that in the last clip, but that's where I told you I was going to connect it to one of those two screws, and I got it here on the right screw. And that's the ground, just to make sure the frame of the monitor is grounded. And you know, it comes from the ground that jumps off of the line filter and over here to the frame ground on the switch and power supply. There is some grounds in this cabinet that are cut. I noticed there's one missing from the control panel up there. You just see there is a grounding wire jumping from one of the hold down brackets or the lock mechanisms over to the metal part of the joystick. But down at the bottom of that locking mechanism, you just see, I think it's a red insulator, and there's supposed to be a ground wire coming off that, and I don't know where it's supposed to go, probably down to the coin door. And then it's probably supposed to come from the coin door to something back here in the cabinet or to the monitor frame, but there's nothing on the coin door, I don't think. I'll have to look. I don't think there's a ground wire on it, but we'll probably reinstall those grounds. And we gotta think of where we're gonna mount this adjustment board for the monitor, if we can get it working. But guys, I'm off to bed. Hope you enjoyed the journey with me. See you later.